last week, and it's fallen on me to do this week, and this room is boiling. And she said, everybody says they're looking forward to data, so I'm going to struggle to be struggling in my mind to think, how do you make data exciting? But I think the key thing for this, and the key thing for this whole session is that data, and that goes back to your question, underpins everything. Yeah? There are examples as we go through this of different ways of thinking about things. Some of it is at the very simple end of the spectrum, some of it a bit more complicated. What I want you all to do, and I know I've been chatting with people over tea and coffee, that it's about thinking about what's right for you at a point in time. So reflect on what you can take from this, but take some of the key messages about how you present things, how you integrate it, and maybe how you think about using things in a different one. The other bit, and this is going to be really difficult in a lecture theatre, is I don't want to spend an hour doing this. I would like you to maybe have a little chat amongst yourselves as we go through towards the back end. So I would like people to participate. So those hospitals we visited, if you would like to, I'd quite like you to be able to say some of the things you did that worked well from the data point of view, what you got out of it, what you might change, or what the issues were. So if you guys can reflect on that. I don't want to pick on anybody, but I've got 3 in my line of sight at this point in time. And if I go that way, I've got my 4. So, but it'd be really good, I think, just that sharing and that cascading. We've got a couple of examples in this we're going to use, but actually I know everybody did some. So if you guys can think of things that might be helpful, or what areas where that would be really, really good. All right? So if you don't mind doing that, that would help me out as well. So, maybe picking that up, what were the big data issues? And this rehashes some of what we spoke about earlier, but it will start to give you a feel. What we had was that lack of transparency, a lack of visibility, and there is actually something in this about a lack of ownership. Yeah? And I always go back to a little principle I used to have, we got on my medics, which was you put a patient on a waiting list. Yeah? So actually, people should own the patient. They will tell you clinically they own the patient. Well, actually, you own the data or things like that. So have that discussion with people. You've got to have the ownership of the data. If you don't have the ownership of the data, you can solve the problem. There was a lack of chronological booking, and I think part of that was process related, but also part of that was data driven, because some people didn't use the data they had as effectively as they could. There was also that stress testing, and we're going to talk about this as we go through, but actually physically thinking about how you stress test the capacity. I had a chat with somebody. He said, I think somebody said to me this morning, very useful, but we've got this problem. One of the things is take that 3 months and actually look forward. Think about your capacity. Maybe going back to your point about whether it's overtime, local use, or whatever. Factor that into what your thinking is when you're using the data. And also think about how you use it. Yeah, this is here to prompt you to think about using data in a different way. It's got some examples in it of how some of the hospitals took what we did and translated it. Equally, I'm sure, into my question, some of the other guys did different things. Yeah, so use this as an opportunity to share. But I would argue very poor use of data across the piece, largely. Part of that driven by people's belief that they couldn't do it. Everything I'm going to show you was done in Excel. Everything I'm going to show you was done off an existing PTO, which is the data you send to the NCPF every week. And all we did was cut it and slice it in a different way. So it's using the data that already exists. There's nothing new in this. It's a different way of viewing it. But I think going back to Lizzie's point, it was just using a different way of looking at it and thinking about the tools you could use timeline. The data bit for me, going back to what David said about the toolkit currently focuses on waiting list management, but the data that underpins the whole of that bottom piece. So going back to the service plan question, yeah? Demand implies what do I need to do and what do I need to treat. Question, when I have that demand and all of these patients get referred into the system and then I decide that I'm going to admit them, then I need to look at my capacity. Once I look at my capacity, I then say, how do I manage this? And it is a target-driven world. So how am I managing against those targets? What are the constraints on that? And what can I do potentially differently? Then once I've done that, how how do I book and schedule those patients, which is again the data issue. Yeah. What is it that like, am I going to meet myself on targets or not, as the case may be. And then actually, this is the one that I think from an operational point of view is the most important. Yeah. It poses the question, am I using my resources in the most efficient way? So it gives you the challenge that says, I'm only using my favourite one, a number of people commented on this. My day case beds for 2 patients a day, why not 3? Yeah. The biggest asset in your hospital is probably your theatres. So who in the room's got a 23-hour day case surgery unit? Nobody. Should operate 16 hours a day. You've got the bed capacity. There might be constraints on that. You could operate a 16-hour session. Okay. So why use the data to pose those challenges? Yeah. Really, really important. Have I got somebody, I used to have an orthopedic surgeon who did 1 HEPA session, and one of his colleagues did 4, and one of his other colleagues did 3. Royal College of Surgeons guidelines in the UK are 3. Why is one person doing 1? Might be a really complicated case mix. It wasn't in his case. So can we retrain, develop and support to get to 3? Use the data to pose those questions. Yeah? So when we're looking at why do we need good data, one of the issues is good data underpins good decision making. Yeah. I've never had a discussion with a surgeon that I couldn't have in a data-driven way without if I had a conflict. Yeah. I'm not talking to you, horrible administration people. That happens. However, lapse in the room at that point. I'm sure that would happen to people. Here's your data. Here's your team data. Don't really understand it, guys. Can you walk me through it? Gets to the heart of the issue. Start to think about using it to facilitate that discussion. Think about how you present the data, and this goes back to maybe part of the service plan question in a way. Yeah? When you look at this bit, what data do you need to present a waiting list in an effective way to have a discussion with the surgeon, theatre manager, or the set of nursing staff? You probably need data that shows you things like what's your capacity, what's your waiting list, what are you putting through the system, but also what are your constraints. So it could be the simple things like people are going on holiday, a constraint. Could be a thing I don't really understand, rolling theatre closure. Yeah. It could equally be things like what's your vacancy rates, or what's your staff turnover rates, or what's your absentee rate. So start to think what you need to measure, because actually you can lay status on by people not being there. Yeah, and it will be seasonal, and you can start to look at stuff like that. So think about what can you put on a page to do that. My favourite is that one. The interesting thing for me from all the hospital visits was how competitive everybody actually was. So one of the things was we had discussions with specialty teams in a closed room about individual consultant performance, because we gave them their data. And actually, to a team, everybody engaged in the discussion about what the issues were. And part of it was sometimes, oh, I didn't realise you had that problem, Ruth. Is there anything I can do to help? Part of it was, oh, I don't have a problem, but you do. But actually working through that with people is actually quite a good thing to do, because the key thing is, surgical teams are teams, quite much what they're meant to be. So actually, can you move the system, but use that as the data? And actually, I think the competitive nature of surgeons particularly came out on that one. The other bit is, without the data, you can't work out where your problems are on a pathway. Yeah. So part of my problem, going back to my orthopedic guys, was actually the person who did one had a great process to him, which was he would come in, then request the patient. Somebody would walk 2 miles to a ward, put the patient on a trolley, bring patient to theatre, and then he'd sit there for about 45 minutes. Doesn't really work. Whereas actually, if you think about what's the flow, what does that mean, what do you need to do? Yeah? Start to think about where the blockages are, and using the data more effectively, then it helps. And that also helps with your service. Use it to challenge and track the performance piece. So one of the big things for me from the action plans we did with hospitals solution for a point in time, but you need to be thinking about it strategically. So how do you embed that process within your daily working? Because actually it should be business as usual. Yeah? So what are you going to do to embed the process? And then how are you going to use it to roll it out further? Because I'll guarantee you, one of my surgeons once said this to me, and I quite like it. Everybody will have a problem at one point in time. So the good guys today could be the bad guys tomorrow. And actually that whole thing about getting an organisational culture that using the data to do that is really important. Yeah? And then think about what are your KPIs. So what is it? Going back to the service plan and things you want to look at, that could be also about balance and a budget for some people. Yeah? What's the impact? So you could say, when money follows the patient, yeah, one of the big things is understanding the activity cost of all of that. Yeah, that will be an important measure when money follows the patient. Because if the patient's DNA is I don't get paid for the activity. Therefore, really important, I understand, one, the number of people with DNA, but also one, and what can I do to prevent that so that I maximise my income. And I also think about this. Liz spoke about it, we spoke about it earlier. But think about using data for a discussion. Yeah? And don't be scared to have that. Because actually the interesting thing is once the data is there, you can't question the data. Yeah? That is a waiting list. That is your visa list. Those are the number of beds. That is a vacancy rate. What's wrong with it? How do we make it work? Use the data. Everybody else says really difficult to engage people. Use the data. It'll be difficult without that, but use the data in our daily discussion. And we showed this earlier, but I think there are some important things on it. When you're talking about that, and when you're using the data, don't present somebody with someone that's this thick. Yeah? Because actually nobody's going to go through it in a lot of detail, and it's going to mask out the issues. So think about what is it you can put on 1 or 2 pages. So think about how best it is to present it. Who in the room likes dense tables? Okay, I answer my own question. Yeah? Think about how you present the data for people so that it's meaningful, it's easy to see, it's easy to look at keyword on maps, trends. One of the big things is actually about starting to think about how do you use the data to look at trends. I'll guarantee you every reading room focuses on snap points. Yeah? I have a personal hatred, is my team now, about pie charts. Pie charts are about the most meaningless way of presenting data. Yeah? But if it works for you, use it. I think though importantly that when you do convey data to people, you convey the messages that sit behind that. Okay? So we did this with every hospital and we broke it down. But the key thing for me was it said, where am I? That's an immediate snapshot. So on this, it says, if I got wait time, that's my problem. I've got an immediate snapshot. I equally have a very interesting way of looking to say I can visualise it by looking at where my problem is within that. So I know where my largest number of waiters are, and I know by week the numbers of patients with. Yeah? Very, very simple way to look at it. I also know what my trend is coming down the line. So the forecast piece is important. Yeah, and I think that was one of the big things for me when we did the visit, was about people thinking about 3 months out. So what does it look like? Really forcing yourself to think. Yeah. If you can do longer than that, great, but I suggest 3 months is a good time to look forward. Equally at this point in time, I'll get you beyond the year end. Actually, the key question is what you're going to deliver for the year end. Okay, so thinking forward. The interesting thing though is that trend analysis. So when you look at this bit, what have you treated weekly will help you in that piece of work. And that's just a cut looking at. So this bit gives you, in this case, of the patients treated in a particular week in time, where did they come from? Okay? On the waiting list. Now I'm going to show you a different example from one of the hospitals we visited who took that logic and interpreted it their own way. Probably argue actually their way of presenting it is the way we did, but it prompted thought. But the key for me is to say, if everybody is being treated from over here and not over here. Why? Yeah, because if you're going down the chronological piece, what's the issue? So what you want to do is understand, that's my challenge, where are people coming from? And then in a way, what are the trends that I've got within it? So you've got to use stuff that's accurate. It's got to be based on the system. It's got to be a timely piece. There's no point in doing this if it's 6 weeks out of date. Yeah. And also you've got to have that timely focus as to where you go. And I would argue that's really, really important. Yeah. So when you talk to people, understand their problems. We had a set of cardiologists when we did the visit who had a big issue with access to capital. Well, actually, if you're going to have the discussion with those guys, look at what's available, what the resourcing issues are, and have that discussion. Yeah. That's because that's the problem and that's the danger. Yeah. Have the discussion and use the data that's relevant to the discussion. So one of the things is it won't be consistent for everybody, but you want to give people, where am I? What does it look like and what's the trend and what are my tricks are? Then you can get into the capacity. This maybe goes back to the service piece as well. One of the things to factor into the thinking is then to say, when I look at a waiting list, I want to look at the shape. Yeah. Should be a nice curve with no breaches. It always goes up in the middle. I'll show you a simulation later. So it's always low, goes down in the middle, and then hopefully it gets to no breaches. So it should be a nice distribution. If it's not, why? Are there any trends? Yeah. I always equate it in my mind to if you're running an emergency department, you know the trends that you get. Yeah. Say middle of the summer, kids fall out of trees when the weather's good, therefore you know what's coming to the front door. Middle of the winter, you get loads of people fall when the weather's forecast to be snow. You get loads of elderly people fall at home. Well, actually, you can start to forecast what the trends are and use the trend data to profile your resourcing. Resources are not a static. And that's one thing about using trend data. So start to use the data to profile the resourcing better as well. Going back to the service planning piece, that's what you've got to think about. And also, look at absolutes and forecasts. Yeah. So if I'm not going to ask you to do this, but my difficult question would be, who in the room can answer how many breaches do you have by the end of December by consultant? Who knows that and what you did about it? Yeah. Just going to leave that because that's a fundamental question. Yeah. If you can't answer that, you're not using the data effectively. So it's thinking through what is that, because that also answers your question. Within that, though, you need to understand the demand without a shadow of a doubt. Okay? So, what is it that's coming down the line? So when you look at those graphs by week, you know what the demand is that's going to hit your scheduled care server. What is my bed capacity and my beta capacity? And I'm going to show you the most simple way to do it, and I'm sure everybody does do it. But if you don't do it, can I encourage you to do it? Yeah. Because once you know what that is, and you know what that is, you can then calculate to enough beds to treat that. Okay. And I think keep that locked in your mind as a little triangle, if you like, around. You've got to use the beta capacity first, then you worry about the bed. Yeah. If you know 25% of your bed state will be down, don't factor it into your plan. Or if you do factor it into your plan, make sure you've got a very good contingency. Have I got the right level of staff? What's my vacancies? My favourite subject, use of locums. Yeah? Or indeed agency nursing staff. But actually, when you look at that as your first pass, have I got the right number of people in the right place with the right skills to treat those patients? Or have I got a problem? So you've got to be able to say when you do a capacity plan, I've got the resources available to treat those patients. And that's got to use that data very effectively. Think about how you use, and I know there's lots of freezes and stuff, but think about the impact of all of those. Yeah, whether it's overtime or locums, whatever people do. But think about the impact. One of the things from one of the visits that struck me was there was one of these, he was holding off a service. That individual was the best person to that service because they were clearing your bucket load of activity, but they were equally a single point of failure in the server because they're not there, they're not constantly exhausted, and they're always at rest. So what's the contingency and how do you work around that? And that's the really important bit for me when you look at whether it's a service plan or a team. Think about this bit. We spoke about that earlier. Yeah, but if dermatology is always a good one. Yeah, high percentage of people who are scheduled for dermatology outpatient clinics don't rock up, usually because they went to their GP about 14 months before they get their appointment and their rash is cleared up and get high level of DNA. So look at your DNA rates, going back to what Liz was saying, factor the DNA rates and stuff. So think about it. Think about this bit. When you do a theatre capacity plan and a bed capacity plan, you don't need to make it overly complicated, but you do need to think for every surgeon, or if you've got physicians who are doing scopes or whatever, what is it that is the urgent routine mix? Now there's a national, international little average that goes, it's using it, looking at it that way, it's 20/80. But you will get people who are 50/50, you will get people who are 90/10. Yeah? So actually work with your teams to say, what is it? Because that impacts on this. Okay? So if you assume that 100% of your capacity is going to be wrong, because you will have urgents going through, so what are you taking off? It's really, really important to think about that bit. And if there are single points of failure here, which there may be, whether it be x-rays, scans, ultrasonography or whatever, yeah, think about where the diagnostic constraints are as well. Yeah, and also access. So if you're going to run a theatre on a Saturday and you need scanning support, have you actually got radiographers who can do it? Question mark. Then what's the cost of said radiographers and how do you work that? Okay? So it's important when you're looking at the data to not look at it in isolation. You've got to actually be thinking about all of the dependencies. How does it influence behaviour and what is it that not? So this is the one we covered earlier, and I don't want to dwell on this. But I think the key message is, think of the shape. Okay? Every one of you in the room probably manages a weight loss. What's the shape? And what's your ideal shape? Okay? Think about this horrible bit at the end. So this plastics person, or plastics people, or urology people, yeah? What are they? And why? Are they actually the patient who shouldn't be on a list? Question mark. Or are they somebody who's too difficult who always gets shunted to the far end? But I have the question, is that those are all 12-month breaches in that line? Okay? So think about posing the question, what is it? Why is the patient there? Should they be there? Think about the absolutes. Absolutes always keep people's mind focused, whether that be at consultant, specialty or a hospital level. Yeah? One of the interesting things is to say, what's the hospital problem? Because we all own the hospital problem, and we all own each individual specialty problem, and then as a consultant, we own our own problem. Think of the hierarchy as you come down. Those absolute numbers are important. Think about where you're taking your patients from. If you have a surgeon who has, let's just pick on some plastics person, or actually let's pick on the ophthalmology guys. Most of those, I would guarantee you, are probably cataracts. Yeah? But if you look at this fictitious data set and say, if I look at that, and this person isn't clearing that, but has a trend that looks a bit like that, why is it you're taking all the patients on the front end of your lab? Walk me through it. Good discussion. And there may be a very good clinical reason for that, in which case you then need to rethink your capacity plan. And you also need to think through the theory of it. So use the data to unpack that. I like this one. This looks at, just think about it slightly differently. So if you're agreeing an action plan with people, what is the activity that you put through from a routine point of view, and what do I expect you to put through? And it's got straight average on it. So if I look at how this is presented, what's the average last month? So the ophthalmology guys, we're saying you do 35.8 as an average. Target's 45, you're 9.3 cases down. you do that weekly, that's a really, really powerful piece of analysis. Because if you've got 10 weeks to the year end, and that continues, and I've got a plan, I'm 93 patients down by year end. So what is it I need to be doing to improve? So start to think about thinking not just about that, but what is it we said we agreed we'd treat, what's your average, what's the target, where is that? And then when you look at it across a hospital in this case, does it or doesn't it balance out? And where might I want to put my effort? Because it may very well be, if I do my paediatric neurology here, guys are doing a sterling job. Actually, they're always cracking on. They probably don't have a waiting list. So actually, can I beg, borrow, and steal? Yeah, you're starting to think about using that data in a different way. And then think about the trends, where you just come on with about trends. This is probably the most complicated slide that you've ever seen. It's actually a really, really simple piece of logic. One of the tables and graphs on the hospitals does this in a better way. But this is about thinking about what's my stock of work. Okay, so at an aggregate level, do this by specialty, you do it by consultant. What is my total stock of work? What does it look like at any one point in time? Yeah, each one of these is a week. Every one of those is a week going along. And then if I assume I treat this number of patients from my waiting list, what actually happens to that stock of work? Okay? It's actually a very, very clever way when you do your 3-month forecast to look at what happens. So if you assume this is 100% chronological, that bit comes from over here, all of that comes from over here, it's factored in and it's deliberately lumpy because it will be you're never going to get something that's straight every week. So factoring that in as a change, taking that constantly from this slide, what actually happens. In this case, by week 9, I have no breaches. However, if I'm really smart and I'm looking 3 or 4 weeks ahead, I need to have a focus on making sure that I continue to treat that in. Okay? So it's just thinking about presenting the data. Complicated way to do it, but it's thinking about what if you do X. Yeah? So I have 100% chronological looking on all of my breaches. What does it look like? What's the impact? Now that's done on a straight, very, very simple spreadsheet. Okay? And it's just thinking about that stock of work to that clearance. And it also says the smart person thinking here, how do I maintain it? Yeah? And that might not be the case. You might be in an 80-20 situation. So again, what does that look like? Well, if you're in an 80-20 situation, I'll guarantee you it will move down to here. So what does that tell you? Is there anything else you can do to support that? Do you need additional sessions? Could you pull your patients differently? Do you want to actually outsource some stuff or whatever? So you're starting to use the data in a different way, but presenting it that way, that's a really powerful tool to say to a surgeon, we do an 80-20 split, here's what it looks like. What else can we do to make it better? So I know that by week 8, we're beyond the end of December. Gosh, that's an unacceptable position to be in. What is it we can do to make that better? What can I do to help you? Yeah? So think about using it in a different way. Got 2 slides from the matter. Now there's a caveat in it. 1x dummy data, so don't believe it's theirs. The guys have randomized that. And 2, they've got 3 categories, so you should have 2. But at the point we did the revisit, they presented back to us their way of cutting that data in a different way. Yeah? And if we factor, what's for that? And the other hospitals have different ways of doing that. But, interestingly, these looked at where are your patients coming from by week and when they're added to a list. Okay? All data that's actually quite simple to look at in timeline. Key point though is when you look at that is why in week 34 did that happen? Why is there a trend coming that way? Why did it go down? What is the rationale? And equally when you look at some of these, is there a reason? what it does is it prompts the discussion on where are the patients coming from, what's the classification, why, what's the impact. And I think it just gives you a slice of it in a completely different way by week. And if you treat that as based on some semblance of reality, key point is there is significant variability in systems. Yeah. Now there may be a very good clinical reason for that variability, but you've got to have that discussion. Second point is if you do a straight, as somebody in the NTPF said to me the other day, they got a clearance plan from somebody, dummy data here, 10 weeks, 100 patients, we can treat 10 a week. Guarantee you that ain't going to be the case. Yeah? So when you look at your clearance plan, what does that really mean? It means your clearance plan needs to think forward that there might be a different way of having to manage that on a weekly basis. So you're actually starting to think about how you change what you present. This one I love. I do have one complaint about the maths about that. But it's an interesting way to look at it. It's, if you look at, when you look at who you admit something, who you treat, and this is a 0 to 3 month slice. If you do it as a 6 to 9 month slice, it's equally an interesting number. But if you start to think about by specialty, what does it mean? Say, why in specialty 1 is everything urgent? So if this is 0 to 3, you could say in specialty 5, is there a reason that there's so much routine going through? Yeah, from 0 to 3, maybe a very good reason for that. But equally, you expect the balance to be the other way around. If you're actually looking at this as months 6 to 9, that's your ideal. That's your ideal. So use the data and the presentation of the data to actually physically really think through what does it mean. Yeah? And that wasn't difficult for them to do. It was based on an existing system. And all they did was say, we like the principle of what you said, but we cut it in a way that makes sense for us. I think the key is making sense for them. Yeah. But that in itself facilitates a good discussion. So when you're looking at it, what do you got to think about? You've got to look at your capacity. I picked on someone earlier and said, what's your biggest constraint? Yeah. Your biggest constraint is going to be your fetal. Once you've got your fetus sorted, you take the utilisation, you can worry about your beds, you diagnose it. Because it's kind of running a flow. You don't have fetus space, you don't need the bed. Simple, really. Then you've got to work through staffing numbers and availability, your vacancies, and your urgent routine. You've got to put all of that into a pot. Yeah? You've got to actually cut it and present it in ways that work for you. When you work that out, this is the most simple, nudgy way to think about fetal, but it's interesting how few people actually do this. So when you think about it, what you're looking at probably, and I wouldn't do it by specialty, I'd do it by consultant, but for every consultant at a very simple level, yeah, what capacity do they have? Simple way to look at it is how many sessions have they got? Alright? Now I've built a nice capacity plan up the NTPF, it's a bit more sophisticated than that. But how many sessions have you got? And then what's the average number of cases per elective session? That doesn't have to be the most monstrous detailed piece of analytical work. I guarantee you could probably look at a figure that can work it out really quite well. Yeah. You can adjust that slightly. We'll make it more sophisticated, which would be my way of doing it, is to say, Mr. X has 4 sessions a week, does 5 patients a session, therefore he's got 20p. Great. Simple. Pose the question, how many of those patients are urgent? Let's just do 50%, that makes the numbers easy. Therefore, my only available capacity is 10. That's your capacity. Aggregate that by specialty, you now know the fixed constraint. So you know, if everybody does 10, you 4 surgeons, you can do 40 a week. Full stop. That's before you pose the question, am I using my fetus effectively? Can I sweat my assets? Can I have additional sessions? Can you pull the patients differently, etc. But your base constraint is, that's my minimum defensible position. Once you know that, you can then start to think about your bed space. Then you know well actually I need either day case beds or inpatient beds, however that splits out for that number of patients. Have I got that available bed capacity? Or if I've got constrained, what's the issue with following that? Think about when you do that though, this is where I'd make it marginally more sophisticated. Can I pull stuff and can I reassign stuff? Yeah, so think about the data using that one. Think about, can I increase the capacity? Yeah. So if you, when you do that and you work out, back to my orthopaedic surgeons, 1 and 1 and 1 and 4, actually, can I increase that capacity? And is there a reasonable period of time I can do that? So think about the big thing. What can I do with my existing resources? Now, you're going to get constraints, whether that's nursing cover, nurses, or anesthetic or whatever, but think it through. Okay? So start at a very, very basic level, say, what does it look like? And then just adjust that. Do anything for capacity planning, do that. Simple bed algorithm, which can make a heck of a lot more complicated, but if you think about it, yeah, what you're actually looking at in terms of your beds, yeah, how many beds have you got, multiplied by weeks, days, yeah, multiplied by, divided by an average length of stay, gives you physically the total number of beds you've got. Also work out what you're running at, whether you're running at an 80% or 100, I used to have 105% on one of my wards, which I never really understood for a year. Okay, so what's the capacity you're dealing with? Because once you've done that, you can start to say, go back to my day case bed, yeah, if you know you're losing, let's just say 50% of a 22-bedded day case unit to an ED. Let's just make some numbers up. Okay, that's 11 theoretically bed days, but I use that twice a day. Therefore, I'm losing 22 beds a day. Multiply that by 5, I've lost 110 bed days a week. Multiply that by my 10 weeks, yeah, I've got a big number in terms of my lost bed days. So it's actually quite important that when you think about it, keep it clean and keep it simple. Because as you think about those numbers, that's giving you your capacity to treat that amount of different. And when you do it, I think it's important to say, what's your total number of patients you need to treat by a date? And so pick yourself. If I was doing this, if I was anybody in the room, I'd say, what's my year-end position? What's my forecast? And I do my numbers that way. All right? So I'd start from what's my year-end problem and what back. Very quickly. All right? What my total number of available theatre sessions, what my total number of beds, match that, and then say, what are my constraints? Okay? In doing that, I'd also, reflecting back to what we were saying in the first section, I would allocate an indicative TCI date to every one of those patients, matched against my available theatre and bed capacity. Because if you do that, you know what you can treat within a period. Then I'd look at what can I treat. Then I'd look, looking back to the capacity planner I've just built, at what can I do to increase my in-house capacity? What's then left? And then, what might I want to outsource or not, the case may be, accepting that not all patients can be outsourced. So I think if you follow that logic, it will help a lot. Yeah, but I know Shane Allen's gone and was quite passionate about this, but think about the year end. What does it look like, and what's the total number of patients I need to treat? What capacity do I have to treat those patients? And then, from submission of that capacity plan, what am I going to do on a weekly basis? Accepting it might do that. All right? But that's a really, really important thing. And that picks up, have you got the right people in the right place? Yeah? Also, thinking at the year end, let's accept that you're probably not going to do much setting the last week before Christmas, or you might have a tsunami of people. So work that through according to a special take on what people want. Think it through. The other bit to think about, got them in a pack, but there are a number of tools that will be made available. This is one which has been done with the NCPF stuff like that. It starts to look at thinking about what is the available capacity. It takes that and it takes that analysis a level further. Yeah, so it's about like Alan's arithmetic, geometry, calculus analogy. This is probably the calculus end of the spectrum. Okay, what it's saying is, for each of those areas, what's the available level of capacity? How many sessions a week have you got? What does that mean? And then it's got some nice wacky sliders on that. It changes those graphs that say that's the number of urgents that we're going to treat, therefore that's my capacity by week by specialty. Yeah, it's just a more sophisticated way of saying what the basics were. It's a different way. That though does help you think about clearance time. And I think that's an important one to think about. It also helps you have the discussion with every surgeon that you work with who says, I've got 3% of my cases are always urgent. So I was having a chat with somebody earlier. If you've got 3 ophthalmic consultants, one of them's a VR consultant and 2 general, chances are you need to flex with a VR consultant. Yeah, but could you put 1 cataract on every less of that VR consultant? Question mark. Up at the back. Because if that's 10 weeks and they do 2 or less, or they do 1 or less, 2 sessions a week, you've got 20 patients to do it. So think through the logic. And also, this is, again, that's complicated, that's a simple way of looking at it. As you slide those little bars across, it changes the graph. That's a good way to do it dynamically. It's just a different way of cutting data. This also gives you what you're putting on your list. It's not actually the full month's data, it's a dummy spreadsheet that we put on. But just thinking about it, so when you look at it, many decisions to admit you've got a week. In this case, what you've got admissions, you've got who you're removing, and then you've got wait time. Again, it's a simple spreadsheet, but it's just thinking about forces the discussion. When you look at that from a trend point of view, it's probably more important. What does it actually look like? That's an NCPF one of the NCPF liaison nurses did it. And use what's appropriate for you. Yeah, I've got a completely different one. But think about what can you put by week, what can you put by specialty, think how you present what that looks like, and then what you actually physically clear. Yeah. Because if you do that, you're in a better place. I think it's fair to say that people would say that there is considerable variability in the quality of clearance plans that exist. Yeah. In fact, some places don't have clearance plans. So I think one of the really important things is thinking that, let's go for the year end at the moment. What does the actual picture look like? What do you need to treat? What are the constraints? And able to have that discussion. So, thinking about it, all of that data that we used and all of the data that Matter used, and there's other examples from the other hospitals we visited, existed. It wasn't invented for the purpose, it existed. It was presented in a slightly different way. I think the key, it's got to be accurate, it's got to be transparent, it's got to be timeline. Be bold, have the discussions with people, here's what it says. Yeah, if you don't expose it and have the discussion, you'll never get anywhere. Think about absolute trends, numbers, forecasts. This goes back to maybe something I said earlier. Have a database discussion. Yeah. Alan's big thing is to rotate and think. You know, it's your data, so it's your solutions. But have that discussion. The data is it's not a refutable position, it's an absolute. So here's what it looks like. Don't see it in isolation. Go back to the service planning question. Yeah, it will all be impacted by demand. It will be impacted by what you can clear. It will be impacted by anesthetic availability. Integrate it into capacity planning and think about different ways of presenting it. Actually, there's an example I think in the toolkit, which is about it's based on Bowman's virtual bed system. I've probably got that the wrong words, but they can pick it up. But actually, when you see it, it's really good. Yeah. The whole thing is a whiteboard on a wall that's got basically what you'd have in a ward as a bed staying on it. And if you, when you look at it, do it every day, it gives you quickly, well, the day I looked at it, it has 20% bed lost to long stay patients. So if you're them, that's a big number. It has, I can't remember, long, it was a geriatric ward, but a bucket load of people who got C death closed. Therefore, lost some medical bed capacity. And then, did you run through who's due for discharge, who's due for admission, what does it look like, how many beds have I got to play with. You look at that, that's your hospital on a whiteboard. Very clever. Now there's a lot of stuff that goes into support that, might really set me up at this point. But actually to make that work, that's a very, very good visualization of something that's quite a complicated organisation. Having that, taking people down, whether it's your chief executive and looks at it every day because he says he does, actually that's a good discussion to then have with some of the surgical teams or some of the medical teams in that case as well. But what does it look like? Think about how you integrate that. And then actually I would say, picking up Liz's point, there is support there, so use the support. Yeah. People can help you through the process. Don't everybody feel like this is actually too difficult, which it could be, or it could appear to be. Think about where people can help you, how they can get to the system. So I think really for me it's about saying the data exists. Think about how you use the tools you've got. Yeah. Every site we visited did something with data as a result. Think about how you present it. Think about then using it to engage in a discussion. But do not see a waiting list in isolation. If you do, you'll fail. Key is waiting lists behave the way they do because of the range of factors. So actually think about what's my theatre capacity, what's my bed capacity, where are my constraints. If you do that as a first step, guarantee you'll actually be on the road to a successful journey. And it is a journey and it is a road, but think about it that way. Take bite-sized chunks, don't try and boil the ocean, and actually it'll work. I'm going to stop there because that was a heck of a lot to take in. But I'm going to pick on, the guys that we visited. Is there anything you guys would add or want to share? Because I think, it's a different way of thinking. Mark?
I think everything you said is absolutely accurate, and I suppose before you came, I won't say we didn't think of data, I mean, but the conversation would normally be a huge waiting list and it would be a general conversation. And I think after your visit, you focus more on data and numbers, and I think the most slide that everybody that really hit home to everybody is where you have all the information just on one slide, one page, not here, we had it in both. Where it said, this is my waiting list, and these are the theatre sessions available by surgeon, and then you can see, well, look, this surgeon has no waiting list, and this one has, so it has just maybe change and swap theatre sessions or reallocate theatre sessions on different ways, but that one sheet showing waiting list and theatre capacity did shut a lot of people off, but that sort of helped them to achieve our waiting list targets.
But
I do think I would agree with everything based on data and we need to.
I'm going to pick on Paddy and Rita behind you because you guys did the analysis once we were on site, didn't you? So by the time we got to the action plan, we had already done in inverted commas large capacity plan. But how easy was that?
I suppose once we got into, see, traditionally we haven't done it, we haven't been doing it, but once we got into the way of doing it, it became much more clear. The difficulty was, I suppose, that we were facing a change in feast all the time because if you looked at your profile of capacity, let's say over a period of time, then of course in 3 weeks' time it was different because of annual leave and consultants retiring and all this kind of stuff. So you literally had to, the profile changed week by week. Of course, the profile of patients coming up to breach thing changed as well because sometimes it went up, sometimes it went down. So it was an action that needed constant attention. You couldn't just do it and leave it for 3 months. You had to keep at it,
So that goes back to really the reinforcement thing is that ops group is actually really important. The steering groups and we're going to look at things week way, month way, how you set them up, but that ops group and that dynamic nature of the data is really important. I can stand here and tell you everything's different every day, but that's a good mission to do right. We've used your slide, so.
Yeah, well, I think the most effective one was the slide where it shows the 0 to 3 months patient waiting with the categories on it because it was very, very clear, and for us, our clinical director took a big shine to that particular one because for the first time for him, we would always be asking him to relay messages through to the consultants about what's going on in that, but to him that was his tool. He would go and say, well, I can see now that 10% of your patients
pick on you guys because you used your very sophisticated SAP system and stuff as well, didn't you? But what did you get out of thinking about the data in a different way?
I suppose from our point in Crumlin and a paediatric point of view, we were obviously looking at a shorter waiting time frame.
Yeah.
So it was obviously trying to bring us down to a different level of thinking, and areas that weren't previously high risk were suddenly becoming high risk at a 20-week target. So areas that we wouldn't have been concerned about, ophthalmology, plastic surgery, suddenly were coming onto our radar very significantly. So I suppose the way we looked at our data, rather than the weekly PTL data, was trying to forecast it on a longer term basis for us, and also looking at trending it to the capacity that was actually available to us. I suppose key, what I'd say is the waiting list policy is key to do with the urgent and the routine categories only, because I suppose within Crumlin we don't have an emergency theatre, so there always is that other element coming into the equation of emergencies and other definitions as well. So it allows us to look at our data in totality.
Okay. Does anybody do that already, or has anybody got any really sophisticated way of looking at stuff, or a very simple way of doing stuff? Big stops, what we talked about. Or is that relatively good learning for everybody? Take silence as people are take up some messages, but maybe some learning from everybody to pick up. Okay, we're going to break for lunch, but before we do, I'm going to give you a heads up on some else. So when you come back from lunch, this is where the onus falls on you. You get to do the case study. The case study is based on the day in the life of an ops director. So part of it is based on my previous existence, and part of it is actually based on messages from everywhere we visited actually about the problem. So what we want you to do is to think about solving problems. Now don't mind how you do this, but it's got to be done under 5 headings, and we want you to come back to that. But Jenny and the NCPF guys also had a fundamental question at the back end of that, which is, as a result of having come, having listened, having reflected and having learned, what are the 2 things that you as an individual hospital are going to do differently? Because actually part of that's about helping Jenny inform the training, the development and the support mechanism for you all. So it isn't actually a trade question, it's what actually you're going to do differently. And to a degree, everybody so far has told us the challenges that they might face doing that. Let's once we get that, then we can start to think about, as Alan said at the beginning, this is about thinking about how we support all of you. So actually what can be put in place to help you, whether that be online tools, more sessions like this, fewer sessions like this, whatever. But you know, actually thinking that through. So that's what we're going to get you to do. You're going to work in hospital groups, which are on the wall. I'll move it up there for later. But do come back here and I'll introduce it, and we're going to have a facilitator for every group, and then you can present it back to the groups. So do just this headline. Don't want arrows and arrows and arrows. But so far, I think the feedback has been this has been a monstrously useful process for people. I wrote a semi-model answer. What's interesting is people have come up with better